I apologize. I am having some technical issues. If you could please bear with me a moment. I'm going to try the camera again. Now that looks right. Okay, we're good. Really, really happy to have you here. I want to, while I have a moment, thank my two newest subscribers, Kyle Atkinson and Jenna. Um, Video again. I apologize. I'm trying to figure out how to make this video not um, stuck. It gets stuck. So we're going to shut this off. Let me see if I have a secondary option that might be effective. Get that camera out of the way. Okay, so I believe we've resolved that issue. Again, I want to thank Janet Bullock, forgive me, and Kyle Atkinson for joining the conversation. And a little bit about my history. When I first started writing, I kind of had this pattern where I firmly believed that I wasn't finished with a book until it was on the market, until it was published. Pretty simple philosophy. And in the first 2 years of writing, I think I did 10 books and short stories, kind of a mix of both, which was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed it. And until I hit what I have not discussed yet, that was my philosophy with all of my writing. So, and I've said this to other writers: if you've written something, don't get rid of it. If you are not ready to publish it on the mainstream, don't hide or don't hold on to it. You can always find a place to use it. Bonus content at the back of your book, which is now on Amazon at 10%, and all the other retailers, you can still put a full book if you wanted to. So you've got bonus content that you can use it on your websites, you can give it away to your mailing list, you can use it to create report in your Facebook groups. Your writing, no matter how good you think it is, can still be used. So, there's that. And I've always held this philosophy, I've always believed this, I've always lived by this. And that's not going to change anytime soon. So, with that in mind, I hit some difficult times and grew through them and came out on the other end of that with a lot of life lessons. But I came back to the same philosophy, and that kind of didn't change. And through all of that, I never told anybody to throw their stuff away. If they wrote something, I've always said, keep it, use it. You can find a way, even if you're not going to put it out on the regular marketplace. Use it for other things, because what you write becomes more valuable over time because you'll find a way to leverage it. You can look at all of these writers that came before us, these traditionally published writers that they have, as they moved from, and I air quoted the traditionally published, by the way, because at the time that a lot of the writers I'm thinking of, including the person of subject that we're going to talk about, Robert Hielein, there was only one method of really publishing and getting your work in front of readers. So we're going to call it traditionally published because that's all there was. So it was published work. Whether that network was through magazines like the Pulp Fiction authors, or through books themselves, that were done through the big six and then the big five publishing houses, or some of the other publishing houses around the world, that have really had an impact on writing and publishing, and really kind of guided the masses to what they were going to read before indies took over. And I do firmly believe that we have kind of taken over. And yes, I am independent. I've had the gatekeeper approval, and I watch so many people turn their nose up at me. I don't really care. It pays my bills. You can turn your nose up at me all you want. Many of the traditional published authors that I've encountered, the people who are turning their nose up to the fact that I'm an independent, are still working a part-time or full-time job. I'm not. I hope that kind of puts things into perspective there. I write. So I've been organizing my year, and I've been hitting this, I wouldn't call it a motivation block, because I'm always motivated to write. Writing is my joy. Writing is my fun. I have my two greatest passions are my writing and my kids. I've been enjoying my kids, and I'm enjoying my writing. Not a whole lot of people can say that. I'm blessed. And that in mind, being one of those people who can say that, it comes because I have this philosophy. Create your work, put it out. Create your work, put it out. And you'll find that I started creating episodic stuff out of stuff I already created when I went through my downswing, and I found it hard to continue to do what I was doing. It wasn't because I couldn't write. There's never a time that I couldn't write. It was a time that I couldn't deal with other things, and so writing was a thing. But my point of saying that is because the work itself can always be used, and it can be reused and remodified and recreated, and it builds your name, it builds your reputation, it builds your visibility, and that's always the most important thing you can do as an author, whether you are traditionally published or you are independently published. The most important thing you need to do is make sure people know your name. And if you're a brand new author, it doesn't matter whether New York has published you and your agent is telling you all these beautiful things. If you are not out there connecting with people in today's marketplace, you will get lost in the shuffle. And I would hate to see that for you. So, all of that to come back to, basically without knowing it, I was living by something Robert Hielein had put out there for professional writers. And there are these 5 rules. The first one, actually the first 3 should seem pretty simple. The first one is you must write. The second one is you must finish what you write. So if you start a project, finish the project. You can go on to the next one, but you must finish what you started. Pretty simple. But how many of us have books out there that are started and not finished? How many of us have stories out there on our hard drive or in a pile that are at best mediocre in our mind, but it's not ours to decide. It's our readers to decide. It's one of those things authors don't always remember. So there's that. So it's, rule number 2 is finish what you write. Rule number 3. This one's going to seem counterintuitive to everything we have ever heard as authors. But I'll bet the most prolific authors will tell you that they're doing this already. And it's you must refrain from rewriting unless editorially required. And quite literally, the way Dean Wesley Smith explains it, he says that it's a matter of trusting your own author voice and trusting yourself. You're creating a story. The story pours out of you into words in a manner, whether it's through dictation or typing or audio, if you're recording your audio bucket, but it comes out of you. You are the creative spirit that gave birth to those books. And that's a wonderful thing. Trust it. Know it. It's real. It's you. And no editor can take that away from you. The way one author who was traditionally published used to say he would do this is the editors from New York would send him a bunch of edits. And he'd fix the first one to their standards. And he'd fix the last suggestion to their standards. And then he'd put it in a drawer and leave it alone. For a while. And then he'd send it back. Oh, you were so right. He didn't rewrite. He didn't revise. He just produced the next book in the same time period that he was editing or revising. So, you must write. You must finish what you write. And you must refrain from revising. It doesn't mean don't edit. You got your line edits. You've got to get those done. You can't be sitting here with something that sounds like you're speaking a foreign language. Unless you intend it to sound like you're speaking a foreign language. And that's the kind of things that you need to understand and have cleared up in your book so that your readers know what to expect and have a quality story instead of just a story. And yes, I did just say refrain from revising, not refrain from editing. Because edits are necessity. None of us, we all get very, very close to our babies and we miss stuff. That's normal. You need somebody else to look at your work. It might be a quick process because you're typically a clean writer. Because you cover all the edits, you fix all of the basic grammar, punctuation and stuff ahead of time, and it's only the more advanced stuff that you got to send to the editor. And really, you want it to go quick for your editor because it costs you less. So, at least as an indie. And really, before you start querying to the traditional publishers, it's not a bad idea to have your book looked at by an editor too, for that same reason, because you want to provide to them quality as well. Okay, so now we're on to rule number 4 in Hieleins Rules. And rule number 4 is you must put your work on the market. And rule number 5 goes with rule number 4. You must leave it on the market until it sells. Now, when you consider the fact that Hielein wrote most of his short stories for magazines with tight deadlines, he didn't have a whole lot of time to do any of these revisions anyway. Do you know what? We recently made a movie from some work of his, like iRobot. People go back and look at, or somewhat recent, I guess it's been quite a few years, but people go back and look at the work of the greats so often. And he would be absolutely one of them. And his prolific nature and his industrious and original stories continue to live on, influencing stories today. So that being said, 5 rules from Hielein for becoming a professional writer. Write. You must write. You must finish what you write. You must refrain from rewriting. You must, in our day and age, publish that book, and you must leave that book up. Now, in our venue, how do you publish your book? That can be self-published, put it out there, if that's your thing. It can be put it up for your newsletter as an exclusive, or your Facebook group as an exclusive. It can be use it as a reader magnet. These are all ways that you are assigning value and providing value to your readers and to your work. And those are the most important things you can do as an author. So, or among the most important things. Really, the most important thing you can do is write. And keep writing. Now, how has this re-energized me? It reminded me of where I was to start with, and where I'm going to be again, and where I've been lagging behind trying to work on fix this or adjust that, but that's not how you do it. I've been a pantser by nature. I always know where the end of the story is going. I always know where the characters are starting. They tell me how they get from point A to point B with each and every line I produce. I have a habit of producing 20 to 40,000 words in a week or so. I'm not trying to brag, it's just my ability. I'm a relatively quick typer, and I'm going to be learning dictation. I'm teaching myself dictation, so that's going to be the next process. So, with Hieleins Rules, going forward, keeping them in my mind, and getting back to where I belong, you should see a whole lot more books out of me this year. A lot more books. And I'm really looking forward to it. I'm not going to be doing a whole lot of big launches, but you're going to see some fun and some partying. Reader partying. I realize we're all a bunch of little geeks. I write sci-fi. Those are my people. What can I say? Happy little nerds. I write sci-fi, watch Star Trek. I am not in a Star Trek versus Star Wars camp. I like them both. More or less. Hieleins Rules are there to remind us that the most important thing in our career is to write. And that we are storytellers. And at no point should we question our abilities when we are the ones crafting the story. Let our readers tell us what they like. Don't ignore what they say. But remember, you're still the storyteller. Let's get them out. I will see you Friday. I would tell you what we're going to talk about, but to be perfectly honest, I've got 2 books that I want to discuss. And I'm trying to figure out which one we're actually going to talk about on Friday. But I'm looking forward to talking to you, and I will see you Friday. Bye-bye.